The other day, I got a glimpse of Jordan Peterson's view of agreeableness. I quite agree with his point of view because it's rich. And in his perspective, he spoke about agreeableness in the workplace, in gender differences, and in relationship. He tends to see agreeableness as a thin line where there should be some level of moderation and not in the extremes. Although he classified that the extremes are actually the point where the effect of agreeableness is really seen, but in a society that has to be in order, there has to be some level of moderation, not to the high extremes and not to the low extremes. He also said something which was quite striking, and he said that those with high agreeableness tend to be people that are in the look for themselves to avoid conflicts, and they are very, very keen at being in harmony with people and building a harmonious relationship. He also spoke about those with low agreeableness as people who tend to be very assertive and they tend to naturally find themselves in conflicts. And one striking point he brought up was that the prison and cells are actually filled with people with low agreeableness because they want to pave their own ways. There is this popular quote by one Odogun I so cherish more. The quote goes like this: that when the center can no longer hold, things begins to fall apart. Popular quote made by Chinua Achebe. Now, there has to be a balance in one's agreeableness. Now, in having to make a balance for agreeableness, research studies have come to a conclusion that there is a correlation between the level or the degree of agreeableness with how much a person can be personally developed.
You get it? If you don't get it, forget about it.
Now, society is a survival of the fittest. Society is a battlefield. Believe it or leave it, we are in a tug of war between the very, very fit and the struggling to survive. When we speak about agreeableness in terms of how well someone can be able to catch up or be able to cope or be able to survive, highly agreeable people, they actually have to learn to be more assertive so they can placed in a better position in society. The fact that they're highly agreeable does not mean they cannot learn high assertiveness. The tendency to be highly assertive can also be learned, and it also boils down to the origin, how all of this plays and how all of this began. We can draw a thin line of correlation between environment and parental upbringing and some level of genetics to what defines the level or the degree of one's agreeableness. Take for instance, bringing about parental upbringing. Like in African culture per se, you have where Papa go tell Pikin say, "You, my son, if I dey talk, you know they talk back. If you talk back, na for the head." You get, a heavy knock might be laid on the child's head just because he tried to be assertive. Even there are certain culture in the African region, or bringing it down home to the Nigerian perspective, where a child can be talking to parents and the child is expected to look down rather than looking into the face or into the eyes of parents. Now, these are some of the things that shapes and model the degree to which one is agreeable or assertive. Also, in the context of the environment, this is where peers come to play. Take for instance, we have children who are bullied from their childhood. They have a very high tendency to be the highly agreeable people, especially when they are unable to overcome this bullying of a nature. Now, that's one category. And also, for those that are able to overcome and not to conform to the bullying, they often tend to become low agreeable, in the sense that they are very assertive and always want to fight because they see that it takes fighting to break free from almost anything in life. So the level to which one's degree of agreeableness, whether it be high or being low, its origin goes a long while into environment, into parental upbringing, into the kind of peers that one grew up with, also even into genetics, just to mention quite a few, because physiology also plays a role to that. The adrenaline level to which one has, bringing it to physiology, can also put into the degree to which whether one is high assertive or low assertive, or the degree of high agreeableness or low agreeableness. The people who have high adrenaline would be people who have high fight and fright, tend to be people with high tendency to fight than to flight. So career choice influenced by the degree of one's agreeableness in terms of whether it's high or low. I made an example for career choice like being a lawyer or in the legal luminaries. In regards to this, we have people who are with low agreeableness because they have to stand by a point, they have to prove a point, and they even have to fight for that point. Now, someone who has very high agreeable quality or traits will find it quite difficult to be in that position, especially when it comes to standing by their defendants. The best example coming to mind right now for career choice with high agreeableness would be the likes of, let's say, someone who's hired for utility service like an house help, or someone who's hired to clean your house or to take care of your children. People in this category, they have to be very highly agreeable because they are sort of like caregivers, and that nurture, that kindness, that compassion is actually necessary for them to be able to perform their service at optimum. So the high agreeable and the low agreeable all have their roles they play, especially in regards to the career choice one makes. A very vivid example I will also bring in for the low agreeable traits in which a best fitting career choice falls into is the salesperson. Now, the salespeople are very assertive people, and they are people who are very keen at holding points dogmatically to the point that they air their view and they have to make sure there's a conviction on the person that view is being aired to. So negotiation is not a thing of whether the buyer wants it or not. It's a matter of whether they want to sell it. So they sell the idea and they make sure it's bought. That actually requires traits like low agreeableness but high assertiveness. Speaking about agreeableness in gender differences, women tend to have higher score when we talk about agreeableness than the male gender. Now, this also have its social and economic implications in our society, in the sense that, one, in terms of social, it affects the role to which people play and how they play that role in the society. And also speaking about economic, it affects the choice of career and even the way in which people carry out certain activities in their work, in their career, or in their jobs. Take for instance, there are certain jobs or certain careers that actually require someone with high assertiveness. Research studies have shown that the women gender or the female gender tends to have higher agreeableness than the male. Certain reasons and factors actually do that, but the implication it has in society at large is that it affects quite a number of things. It affects the career choice, it affects the roles and the responsibility that people take in society, and also even it influences negotiation skill sets. The people with high assertiveness are very, very keen and very, very good with negotiation skills, and they're very good at speaking and holding on to a point. Also, on the other hand, in regards to the career choice, high assertiveness is very keen at defining the career type that somebody tends to. Take for instance the lawyers. They are rarely people with low assertiveness, but people with high assertiveness are those who are paving ways as legal luminaries. The disadvantage of high agreeableness in the workplace falls in categories like where, or instances where there is a need for competitive or a high assertive leadership, and someone tends to be super agreeable. In such situations, the leadership position would be at a disadvantage point because we have a lover boy rather than a fighter.
You go.
Yes.
I want to harvest you.
Speaking about relationship, more or less romantic relationships, high agreeableness has a key role to building a solid and a well-nurtured relationship. So still on boundaries and agreeableness in relationship is where we find the Mr. Nice guys. And the Mr. Nice guys, they never go home with anything. Life is always unfair for the nice, and they always the chop breakfast.
Everybody go chop breakfast.
So understanding your weakness, understanding your strength can actually put you in a place where you can put a balance or create a balance to your agreeableness to become a more productive person. And also, the more productive you are, the higher your chances of also becoming a successful person.